And good to see all of you. This is I have to confess, a little larger turnout than I was expecting. Labor Day Sunday is usually a pretty low attendance Sunday in congregational life. So yeah, I guess maybe I was correct and strategic in thinking maybe this is a good Sunday to bring Einstein to church. So anyway, thanks for coming today. Much appreciated. So where to begin? It all began, I guess, you would say, with a young boy lying in bed, recovering from a bad cold. And the boy's father gives him a small gift, a magnetic compass. The young boy marvels at the compass and its dancing needle, which seems to magically move as if influenced by some hidden force or unseen reality. The young boy is so amazed and astonished by the compass and by that mysterious force that he, as he described it later, begins to tremble with excitement. Now, when 5-year-old Albert Einstein held that compass and watched its needle magically move, it marked the beginning of a lifelong journey to understand those hidden forces and unseen realities. Reflecting back on that moment many years later, Einstein himself recalled that watching the compass needle move led him to conclude there had to be something behind it. He wasn't sure what something was. There had to be some force, some reality. And that search for that force, which Einstein would come to call God, that search became the defining quest of not only his scientific career, but also his spiritual life and journey. Now, before I share some of the story of Einstein's spiritual journey, let me make one thing very, very clear. I am not a scientist or a physicist, and no, I, of course, don't play one on TV. I can not hardly spell the word relativity. Jimmy Gorham asked me this morning if I know the difference between the two theories of relativity, and I said, other than that they're all relative, I have no idea. I know, talk about lame, that's a really lame joke. But what I am going to talk about this morning is the relationship between science and religion, a relationship which is so often seen as being at cross purposes and even antagonistic. And by looking at that relationship to the life and thought of Einstein, I believe that we can start to build a bridge across that divide between science and religion, a bridge that celebrates and affirms those things that religion and science have in common: curiosity and imagination, mystery and wonder, and most importantly, I think Einstein would say, an awe-inspiring sense of the beauty and harmony of creation, a sense that Einstein beautifully called cosmic religious feeling. So Einstein's spiritual story begins, as most do, during his childhood, a childhood that sparked, as we said earlier, his scientific and religious imaginations. He was born and raised in Munich during the last quarter of the 19th century. Einstein, of course, was Jewish, but his parents had a pretty distant relationship with their faith. They rarely, if ever, attended the synagogue and didn't really observe Jewish law or ritual in their home. Now, his parents' disdain for organized religion didn't deter young Einstein from striving to understand that unseen and mysterious force. For a time, he searched for that understanding in Judaism. When Einstein was about 10 or 11, he went through a period of, he describes as kind of intense religious fervor. in which he tried to closely follow Jewish law, read the Torah daily, and even tried to compose songs. But as his encounters with modern science increased, Einstein's passion for religious ritual and observance waned. But his hunger to understand the unseen, the mysterious, what he liked to call the mind of God, that spiritual hunger, if you will, it didn't diminish at all, but instead became part and parcel of his scientific quest, a quest that eventually led Einstein to redefine our understanding of the physical world and to help us get a glimpse, albeit small, of the mind of God. Now, I think it's important at this point to say a word about Einstein's use of the word God, which remains a point of great controversy and conversation today. You see, from that early period of religious fervor, right up to the end of his life, Einstein very clearly and flatly rejected the understanding of God found in many religious traditions, which describes a kind of personal God that concerns itself with the details of our daily lives. For Einstein, God was not a puppet master who intervenes in the lives of human beings. After receiving a letter from a child who simply asked him, what a great question, do scientists pray? Einstein responded that a scientific outlook is based on the idea that everything that takes place is determined by the laws of nature. So a scientist wouldn't be inclined to believe that events in our world could be influenced by a prayer or a wish addressed to a supernatural being. I might just add there that, of course, Einstein is understanding prayer in the classic sort of petitionary prayer sense. There are, of course, other ways of understanding prayer as well. But if Einstein rejected the notion of a personal God, he most certainly embraced an understanding of the divine. In many ways, Einstein's conception of God was heavily influenced by his study of and admiration for the 17th century philosopher Spinoza, who viewed God as reality itself, as the very substance of existence. God is not distinct from or above reality. This is God. God is reality. Later in that same letter to that young girl, Einstein echoed Spinoza's what we call pantheistic view of God in writing, everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of humankind, and one in the face of which we must feel very, very humble. In this way, Einstein concluded, the pursuit of science leads to a religious feeling of a special sort. A feeling, he concluded, that is quite different from the religiosity of many people. Now, as I said before, passages such as these from Einstein's writings have led to a great deal of debate about what he believed. Was Einstein an theist, an atheist, a believer, a non-believer? I have to say that debates such as these don't really interest or excite me very much because they usually say far more about those trying to claim Einstein for their side of the debate than they do about Einstein himself. But let me say this. It seems clear that throughout his life, Einstein embraced an idea of religion and divinity that was very different from the arguments of either side of the theist-atheist debate. As mentioned earlier, Einstein never embraced the personal God of many faith traditions. At the same time, he criticized atheists who often tried to claim him as a follower or fellow traveler. And I think what led Einstein to reject the arguments of both sides of this conversation was their lack of humility. Here's how Einstein distinguished his views, for example, about atheism. He said, "What separates me from the so-called atheists is a feeling of utter humility toward the unattainable secrets of the harmony of the cosmos." So I think what characterized Einstein's religious outlook, an outlook that distinguished him from both believers and non-believers, was quite simply humility towards the mysteries of the universe, or what I sometimes like to call the spirituality of I ultimately don't know. Now, of course, not all the workings of the cosmos are unknowable, and Einstein himself helped unravel some of those mysteries. And it was in the unraveling of those mysteries that Einstein's spiritual journey found its greatest depth and meaning. You see, the more he explored, discovered, and learned about the universe, the more he felt connected to and at home in it. Science became for Einstein a path to religious, and I would even say mystical experience, a path filled with awe arising out of the harmony and regularity that he found in the cosmos. A path of wonder and amazement that will, at some level, always remain a mystery. And there was something else extraordinary about Einstein's spiritual journey. I think it's fair to say that the more connected he felt to that harmony, to that mystery of the universe, the more connection and compassion he began to feel for others, for his fellow human beings. As some of you may know, for much of his adult life, Einstein was a passionate advocate for human rights, for freedom of conscience and thought, and for world peace. And Einstein's commitment to those values was certainly part of both his scientific and, yes, religious outlook. He believed that a set of physical laws and principles had produced harmony and beauty in the cosmos, and he felt that a similar set of shared ethical values and principles, peace, freedom, justice, that those principles could create a similar harmony and beauty within the human family. Now, of course, Einstein recognized that the results of science and technological advances were not always in harmony with his principles that he held dear, and in no other area of his life was this more true than in his connection to the making of the atomic bomb. Einstein's theoretical breakthroughs had contributed to the development of the bomb. Don't ask me to explain that. And Einstein himself, as you may have saw the movie Oppenheimer, Einstein himself wrote a famous letter to President Franklin Roosevelt, warning of Nazi Germany's atomic program and urging the United States to pursue a research program of its own. Of course, that letter helped inspire the creation of the Manhattan Project and ultimately paved the way for the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think it's safe to say that Einstein felt deeply, deeply ambivalent about his role in helping to usher in the atomic age. He, of course, did not work directly on the Manhattan Project, but always felt a certain responsibility, I think, for its creation. But what I admire about Einstein is that rather than sitting back and feeling guilty or rationalizing his role, however you might want to characterize that, in the making of the bomb, he lived his values of peace and harmony by advocating for the creation of a set of principles and controls that would assure that atomic weaponry and atomic energy would never be used again as an instrument of war. Of course, Einstein's efforts did not succeed at trying to promote international control of atomic energy, and they did not prevent the Cold War or the nuclear arms race. But his deep-seated and outspoken humanitarianism provided a voice of reason and conscience during a time of great fear and intolerance. And I think for that, the world owes Albert Einstein an enormous debt of gratitude. Now, while virtually all of Einstein's scientific theories and ideas are way beyond my understanding, actually all of them, there have been moments in my life when I think I've experienced that connection that Einstein describes between science and spirituality. And I'd like to close this morning by just sharing one of those experiences with you. Some years ago at night, one evening, when Carol and I, my spouse and I, were living in New England, we were at a beach gathering with a group of our Unitarian Universalist church friends. It was a beautiful, beautiful summer night, and the sky was crystal clear. There were I don't know if I've ever seen so many stars up in the sky, and I felt where we were, on the beach with the ocean lapping up right near us, that I just felt like they were like almost within my grasp. And as we sat around a small bonfire, sharing food and stories and laughter and joy, one of us saw a shooting star race across the night sky. Before long, there was another, and then another. And pretty soon, we were just seeing one shooting star after another, and it felt kind of like a cosmic fireworks display. And as we watched this amazing sight together and talked about it, our conversation gradually turned to some of the facts, even some of the science behind what we were seeing. We talked about the fact that what we were actually witnessing, of course, was a meteorite entering the Earth's atmosphere rather than stars actually shooting across the sky. But we also talked about all those thousands and thousands of stars that we could see that night, their incredible size and distance from us on that beach, how the starlight we were seeing in that moment had undoubtedly been emitted many, 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 many years ago, maybe eons ago, well before any of us were, long before any of us were alive. And the longer we talked about some of the science that we were experiencing, the more I think I came to experience that cosmic religious feeling that Einstein talked so much about. In that moment, sitting there with my friends, watching that magnificent, magnificent sky, I felt so deeply connected, so at peace, so privileged just to be alive, to have love and that friendship in my life, and to live in a universe of beauty and harmony, a universe I will certainly never understand or comprehend, but a universe that we can always call home. And I think it's that sense of being at home in the universe, at home in the midst of the beauty and mystery of existence. It is that experience, that emotion, that feeling that is at the heart of Einstein's spiritual life and journey. His experiences and ideas, I don't think they will ever get turned into a new religion or theology. And I think that's probably a good thing, because what Einstein points us towards is not dogma or absolute certainty, but instead a way of living and being that embraces imagination, humility, curiosity, and deep, deep appreciation for a universe and a cosmos that takes our breath away and that blesses our lives with beauty, with mystery, and with wonder. That's my Einstein sermon this morning. Amen. And blessed be.